Today, Yamaha finally announced some proper details and images of their new 2021 R7 that they've been teasing for a few weeks now. And whilst it doesn't quite pack the same pedigree as the original R7, I'm still pretty excited about this one. So in today's video, we'll go through absolutely all of the specs, and at the end I'll give you my 3 reasons for this being one of the most appealing bike launches of the year. So like I said, apart from the name, this bike has really nothing to do with the OG R7, which was a superbike homologation special from the late 90s with a Revvy 749cc inline 4. The new R7 will actually be based upon the MT-07 platform, which is their extremely popular affordable middleweight naked that also became an adventure bike in the form of the Tenere 700, a retro in the XSR 700, and a crossover tourer in the Tracer 7. The CP2 parallel twin at the heart of these bikes is a big selling point for all of them, with a lively character that exceeds its middling performance figures and a 270-degree crank that gives it a bit of spice at the exhaust. That same engine will be deployed to the R7 with identical power and torque figures, producing 72 horsepower at 8,750 RPM, and 67 Nm of peak torque at 6,500 RPM. Now there are a few tweaks. There's a new ECU, optimized air intake ducts, a new exhaust design, and revised fuel injection settings, all of which combine for a claimed improvement in smoothness and responsiveness at the throttle. It's also compliant with Euro 5 emissions regulations and gets a shorter second gear ratio for a bit more punch off the line, but ultimately I'd expect it to feel almost identical to the MT-07 on the road. But that's not to say that Yamaha have just stuck a fairing on a naked bike. There are plenty of other tweaks elsewhere to make this a proper good little super sport bike. An assist and slipper clutch has been added, which prevents the rear wheel from locking up on aggressive downshifts, which is especially handy if you mess up your rev matching. That's the slipper part, whilst the assist will pull the clutch pack together under load, so lighter springs can be used in the clutch, leading to a 33% lighter feel at the lever. Clearly the slipper is of the most benefit on a supersport bike like this, but the assist is a nice bonus. On top of that, there's also now a quick shifter option available for the R7, which can be fitted as an accessory, although it's only on the upshift. That still means that you can pin the throttle and bang through the gears under hard acceleration, but you won't get a blipper for clutchless downshifts, which does seem like a bit of a shame. The suspension on the MT-07 has been considered one of its weaker points, but that ought not to be the case with the R7, with 41mm upside down forks that offer full adjustability from KYB. They use what Showa call a separate function design, with compression in one leg and rebound in the other, making adjustments quick and easy. Not only should improved suspension benefit the bike's handling over the MT-07, but also the head angle has been made slightly steeper, shortening the wheelbase by 5mm, which ought to sharpen things up a little. At the rear, the shock also gets revised settings to suit the more sporty intent of the R7, and like the MT-07's, it's rebound and preload adjustable. Braking gets a boost too, with radially mounted 4-pot calipers at the front, replacing the regular axially mounted calipers of the MT. These ought to have more rigidity, which leads to a crisper feel and more consistent power at the lever. Speaking of which, the master cylinder has also been upgraded to a Brembo branded radial unit, so again, that should contribute to a nice, predictable, precise and powerful feel. For the R7, Yamaha say that they experimented with a wide variety of bar, seat and footrest configurations, and the final result is designed to give a sporty yet adaptable riding position that allows plenty of freedom of body position to master different riding situations, especially racetracks and twisty roads. So gone are the flat bars and low pegs of the MT in favour of clip-ons, rear sets, and a solo-style rider's seat which is narrow at the front and wider at the back, offering as much freedom of movement as possible. They've also tweaked the tank cover with deep indents for the knees that allow the rider to get into a tight aerodynamic tuck, as well as grip on with their legs during braking and turning. Speaking of aerodynamics, there's the fairing of course. Yamaha claim that the compact nature of the CP2 engine helps to keep the frontal area of the bike to a minimum, which is key when it comes to reducing drag. In fact, they say it's so slim that the R7 is even narrower than the R3 and R125 and is the narrowest R-Series bike they've ever produced. The result is a higher top speed than any other CP2 powered bike, despite the identical power figures. It does appear as though there's a weight penalty though, with a wet weight of 188 kilograms compared to the 184 of the MT-07, but that's still pretty light when you look at the competition, which we'll get to in a minute. Yamaha say that they've also tweaked the LCD dash for this model, adding a shift light and a quick shifter indicator, although we didn't get any pics, so unfortunately I can't show you what it looks like. And there are no mentions of any electronic improvements, so let's assume that you get the same simplicity as the MT-07, which means no riding modes or fancy rider aids or gimmicks. There's pretty much just ABS and that's it. That said, this looks like a bit of a preview release given that the images are fairly sparse, so there could be more detail to come before bikes hit dealers in October this year. Either way, it looks like it'll go head to head with the Honda CBR 650R and the Kawasaki Ninja 650. The Honda comes in at just over 8 grand and makes good power from its Revy inline 4 with a peak of 94 horsepower right up at 12,000 RPM. That said, it's a good 20 kilograms heavier than the R7, so head to head it could be a close run thing, especially as the CP2 doesn't need spinning up so much. Now the Ninja 650 is a snip at £7,099 and also it runs the R7 much closer in terms of weight at 193 kilograms. But unfortunately, it's a touchdown on power with 67 horsepower produced at 8,000 RPM. The suspension and brakes are also far better spec'd on the R7, so I'd expect it to be priced much closer to the 8 grand of the Honda than the 7 of the Kawasaki, although we'll have to wait for official pricing. The Aprilia RS660 is also worth a mention, with a similar 270 parallel twin, although it outspecs all of the bikes I've mentioned with 99 horsepower peak, a wet weight of just 183 kilograms, and loads of electronics. But at a touch over 10 grand, it's in a bit of a different category, and realistically, I'd expect most buyers to be torn between the Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha. So to kick off my 3 reasons to get hyped about this bike, one would be the price. We don't know the exact figure yet, but it's obviously not going to be some astronomical superbike price. And for a lot of bikers, around the 8 grand mark is pretty attainable, especially with finance available. Number 2 would be the fact that it ought to make for a proper good fun, road-orientated sports bike. If you want something that's lively and that you can give a bit of a thrashing on the public highway, but without getting to silly speeds in the blink of an eye, then this looks like it's going to fit the bill. And all in a pretty good looking package too. I'd say it's the best looking of the bunch, inheriting some of the styling cues from their R1. But I'd love to know what you think down in the comments below. And which colour would you go for, the blue or the black? For me, it's got to be the blue, but let me know your pick down below. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.